very nicely. And then the disadvantage is there are people that didn't hear part 1, 2, 3, and 4 and we're on part 5. There's another disadvantage, that's having children that make a lot of noise. So someone can help the children find a nice place where they can be happy, make all the noise they like. Okay. Is there anybody, I found out last night there were two people that are really new. Like a girl from Puerto Rico and a girl from Ethiopia. So is there anybody here that's new and needs an introduction to who is Dhruva Maharaj? Okay, fantastic. Well, for starters, Dhruva Maharaj is the son of a king who was the emperor of the world. His name was Uttanapada, and his father was Swayambhuva Manu. And Swayambhuva Manu's father was Brahma. So we're going way back in time, practically, literally, according to the Bhagavad Puran, the Srimad Bhagavatam, to the very beginning stages of creation. According to the Vedic picture of time, things move in cycles. I've been mentioning this. So there's of equal duration of the cosmic manifestation is a period of annihilation. Equal duration. And when it's time again for cosmic creation, there's a whole sequence of events. They're described in detail in Canto 3 because that's a question that's asked by Vidura, so you all know who is Vidura. He's one of the three brothers, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura, one of the three brothers. So Vidura, when Vidura was before the Kurukshetra battle, he was insulted by Duryodhana in a public assembly, and he decided, you know, I've been trying to help my elder blind brother Dhritarashtra do the right thing. I've been trying for a long time and he's too attached. I can't move him. There's no service for me here, so he left. This is described in Canto 1, Chapter 13. He left. He didn't even say goodbye to his wife, he just left. 34 years later he came back and delivered his elder brother Dhritarashtra. That's chapter 13. So way over in Canto 3, those who heard this narration from Canto 1, the sages headed by Shaunaka, said to Sutta, the speaker, way back in Canto 1 you mentioned Vidura went on pilgrimage, and you mentioned that Vidura heard from Maitreya before he came back to Hastinapur. Where did he go? Can you tell me? What was that topic, that narration? And the conversation between Maitreya Muni and Vidura must have been fantastic. Could you describe their conversation? It must have been very enlightening. So he narrates. So Vidura asks, this is Canto 3, Vidura asked Maitreya many questions, a whole chapter full of questions, but the starting point of his question was, please describe the process of creation as performed by Vishnu, and then the sub-creation as performed by Brahma. So that's a big topic in Canto 3. Sarga and Visarga are two of the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam. And then the next topic, that's topic number 3 in the Bhagavatam, is the Manus and the descendants of kings from the Manus. So Manu number 1 out of 14 in each day of Brahma, his name is Swayambhuva Manu. So Swayambhuva Manu appears as the direct son of Brahma. He appears with his wife in adult feature. Pretty interesting birth, with no help from his wife. He just bhavati. He just manifests them because it's time after the universe is created to fill up the universe with all the different varieties of living entities, not only human species. So Manu has those two services. He gives laws to mankind, human society, and second, he's the chief Prajapati that does the Prajapati program, fills up Praja, living entities of all varieties within this universe that Brahma just created to assist his father, Lord Brahma. And so there's some details. I'll just quickly. Shatarupa is the name of his wife, Swayambhuva Manu. And together they produced 2 sons and 3 daughters. One of those daughters is spoken of first, Devahuti, Akuti, and Prasuti. They're the 3 daughters. So Devahuti is described, and her marriage to Kardama Muni and Devahuti spend long period of time doing austerities in the forest together, and then she has a desire, as does he, to have children after long austerities, and so he creates he's a mystical person. He creates a mystical city that flies in the air. Not just an airplane, but a city with lanes and parks and big palatial buildings and so forth. And zoom, zoom, off they go, looking at the universe, touring the universe that Brahma created. And then they come back to that same hermitage, and 9 daughters are born. When those daughters become of marriageable age, Brahma comes and says, "Thank you very much. I'd like to see these 9 daughters married to my sons so they can help fill up the universe with good praja." So that arrangement is made by Lord Brahma with the permission of mother and father. And then Brahma says, Devahuti here is pregnant. The child that will be born by her is an incarnation of Vishnu. And he is born as Lord Kapila. And then the whole description of Kapila's teachings with Devahuti, which takes about 6 chapters. That fills up Canto 3. This discussion we've been having is in Canto 4 because in addition to Devahuti, who is a sister, we hear about the brother named Uttanapada, who becomes the next king of the whole planet, Earth, after Swayambhuva Manu, or to assist Swayambhuva Manu in taking charge of this part of the creation. So Uttanapada marries. Uttanapada has 2 queens. The firstborn son of the eldest queen, her name is Suniti, and that's Dhruva. So he's to become the king, because he's the firstborn son. Then the younger queen, her name is Suruchi, she also has 1 son, his name is Uttama, and there's this rivalry, envy and pride from Suruchi towards, she wants her son to become the king. But, so she tells Dhruva, forget it, you're not going to become the king, because you weren't born from my womb. That's the reason she gives. What's a little 5-year-old boy going to understand about all that? But, so, if you want to sit on the lap of your father, here's what you got to do. Severe austerities, worship the personality of Godhead, die, get his mercy, to take birth from my womb, and then you can sit on your father's lap. Very insulting and very harsh. So Dhruva looks to his father, who heard the whole thing, and he is saying nothing, because Suruchi is his favorite queen, and he doesn't want to displease his favorite queen because she might not be nice to him, so he says nothing. Weakness of heart. Hridaya Dorbalya. And Dhruva, although he's only 5, he's a Kshatriya spirited person, and he bursts into tears, runs from the palace, goes to find his mother, who's neglected at some distant place, and cries. The mother hears from those who heard the nasty words of Suruchi, and there's many things we heard. I'm just reviewing that storyline. And she's a perfected being and a supermom. She comforts her son, she feels empathy for the feelings of her son as well as her own feelings, knowing what happened. She has many nice instructions, but one of them that's really important is, my dear boy, you say you want a kingdom that's not just your father's kingdom, but better than your father's father's kingdom, and better than your father's 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 kingdom. That's a kingdom better than Lord Brahma. That means the spiritual world. The little boy, what does he know? But mission impossible becomes possible by the mercy of Vishnu, and she describes. Brahma got his position, Swayambhuvamanu, your grandfather got his position by worship of Vishnu. You want this mission impossible, worship Vishnu. And because he is the source of everything, he can do anything. So Dhruva hears his mother, who he trusts, and she's trustworthy, and she's pointing the direction of the goal of life, shelter of Lord Vishnu. His motivation is big time mixed. He wants a kingdom, but he also wants to become dear to Lord Vishnu. He has these two things happening. So off he goes to the forest to find Vishnu. Narada comes to intervene, tries to dissuade little boy Dhruva from his determination. He finds, sure enough, his determination is unswerving. And so then, instead of instructing him to go to higher consciousness, he instructs him in the process of perfection for that age. Now this, in the age of Dhruva, in the age of Satya Yuga, the means of achieving perfection is Dhyayate, meditation. So we heard yesterday, he gives this very detailed instruction, and probably more because the verses would have been longer if he gave more. But it's the Ashtanga Yoga system, and the form of the Lord that he should meditate upon while in meditation. He describes a process of deity worship that he should do, and how the deity should be made, and so forth and so on, the procedures and so forth and so on. With meditation, deity worship, he gives him mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is the mantra he gives him. Tells him when he should chant it, how he should chant it. And he gives him a place to do all this. And the place is Madhuvan. Madhuvan is one of the 12 forests in Vrindavan. It's still there. It's eternally, actually. And at that time, during Dhruva's time, the river Jamuna flowed nearby. There's a little hill, not a mountain, but a hill. You have to go up. And there's a temple on top where Dhruva did his austerities. And the temple is the deity of Vishnu in the middle. And over here to our right, or to Vishnu's left, is Dhruva, little boy. And over there to the deity's right or our left, that's Narada, So Narada has given him the process for achieving the mercy of Vishnu. Dhruva is feeling enormously grateful. He circumambulates Narada 3 times, and off he goes to Madhuvan. That's where we ended yesterday. So that's a little background. Dhruva, son of Uttanapada. Some more words there. What happened? Something with the setting. Press enter, because it says off. Just press on. Oh. It's not HDMI, it's this other. It's not HDMI. It's USB. USB.
Go to USB.
Now the whole computer went blank.
That's very hard. I see it. Not able to speak the ceiling.
No, that where's the slide changer, that the device? There's no signal. Vasudevaya mantra. And this section is how I've titled things. Krishna comes. What we heard previously, now it's being said in far more detail, is the heading was to achieve Krishna or to receive Krishna. That was one of the earlier presentations. And the nature of the personality of Godhead is, if and when one becomes pure in devotion, Krishna will come. We made reference to Ramchandra. You know, the unhappy event was he was banished to the forest for 14 years. That looked like really sad. But the Leela is, in the beginning of Aranyakanda, commentators describe, he wanted to give his association to the sadhus who were in the Dandak forest. They were fixed in devotion to him, so he came to them. They didn't have to go to Ayodhya to see him. He came to them. And that's the nature of the personality of Godhead. Here's another example. It's from Krishna's pastimes. There was, during Krishna's pastimes, in Dwarka, there was one king that was very far away, King Bahalashva. And Bahalashva, he was so busy with his kingdom, although his devotion for Krishna was perfectly pure, he didn't get a chance to go see Krishna in Dwarka. So Krishna decided he'd go see him. So he got the whole Yadu army, and off they went to visit King Babalashva. And on the way, there were many other lesser kings, and he spent time at this place, that place, because he was giving his association to his devotees. That's the nature of Ram, that's the nature of Krishna, and it's the nature of Vishnu. We're going to hear some of it just now. the distinction between what Dhruva saw within his heart, the form of Vishnu as Paramatma, and then Paramatma disappeared suddenly, and he opened his eyes and there was Vishnu standing before him with Garuda. And they had this personal exchange. The distinction between the Paramatma realization and the Bhagavan realization. We'll hear something about it. So where we ended up was Dhruva went off to Madhuvan after hearing from Narada what to do. And then the scene opens in this section where Narada, we heard yesterday, Narada is Trikalagya. He knows past, present, and future perfectly well. So he knows what's going on with King Uttanapada. He's feeling terrible because the son went to the forest, because he neglected showing even minor affection to him. And Narada knew how he was feeling, so we went back to see him. After Dhruva entered Madhuvan forest to execute devotional service, the great sage Narada thought it wise to go to the king to see how he was faring within the palace. Of course, he already knew. When Narada approached, the king received him properly, offering him due obeisances. After being seated comfortably, Narada began to speak. So now a comment from the Acharyas is, he's a wreck, he's in terrible distress, but he's a cultured person. And as a cultured person, he set aside his emotions and performed his duty, receiving the great saintly Narada with all due respect. So this is a Bhagavad Gita lesson. Those of you that are familiar with this portion of Bhagavad Gita, preceding action, there's the mind. And there's thinking, feeling, willing. Those are functions of the mind. And it starts with thinking, and then those things you think about, there's some feelings about. Those things you're thinking is still within the mind. And then some willingness to do something before you do something. Mind moves matter, moves the body. So cultured persons, they do what is dutiful, even they may be feeling something other, because that's just what cultured persons do. So what are some character-based thoughts? There's some reflecting in this presentation. It's not just lecture. What are some character-based thoughts and feelings that would propel us to offer all respects to others despite our own troubled state of mind? When you're passing through a troubling situation, not be dismissive or impersonal, but continue to be respectful even in those troubled times that we deal with. We're not going to ask you to discuss this. We could, but instead it's just, I'm going to pause so you can take a look at what's on the screen and give some thought to the topic. While I'm looking for my slide changer, it gives me a little break. Something's missing.
Must be on the chair, man.
That's not it.
It must be on the chair. There's nothing on the bottom. The chair.
Dynamic that took place when it's in Canto 6, when there's a visit to the palace of King Chitraketu. Some of you may be familiar with that story. And Angira Muni visits the king and he looks terrible. But the king here's Angira Muni, and he puts those feelings to the side, and he very respectfully, properly, appropriately honors Angira Muni. And then there's some exchange, and Angira Muni asks him, "You don't look so good." Basically, what's happening? And then King Chitraketu, then when asked, reveals his mind. What's the sadness in his heart? So here's King Uttanapada speaking, starting with text 64. The great sage Narada inquired, "My dear king, your face appears to be withered up, and you look like you have been thinking of something for a very long time. Why is that? Have you been hampered in following your religious rites, economic development, and sense gratification, dharma, artha, kama?" And then the king speaks. "Oh, best of the brahmanas, I am very much addicted to my wife, and I'm so fallen that I've abandoned all merciful behavior, even to my son, who is only 5 years old. I have banished him." He didn't banish, he just neglected. "And his mother," he didn't banish his mother, he just neglected his mother. But he's taking it into an extreme. "Even though he is a great soul and a great devotee, my dear Brahmana, the face of my son was just like a lotus flower. I am thinking of his precarious condition. He is unprotected. And he might be very hungry. What little boys do you know that aren't hungry? He might have lain down somewhere in the forest and the wolves might have attacked him to eat his body." Then comes this verse that you see on the screen. "Alas, just see how I was conquered by my wife. Just imagine my cruelty. Out of love and affection, the boy was trying to get on my lap, but I did not receive him, nor did I even pat him for a moment. Just imagine how hard-hearted I am." He's obviously feeling great remorse, and that's a good sign. When we make a mistake, you regret the mistake. But it's too late, because his son just disappeared. Ran away from home, left the palace, went into the forest. Who knows if he's even alive? Because of me. So Narada then explains. Here's the first of these verses. "My dear king, please do not be aggrieved about your son. He is well protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although you have no actual information of his influence, his reputation has already spread all over the world." Now there's underlined here is well protected. We'll discuss that some more. It's very important in understanding Dhruva's situation. "My dear king, your son is very competent." Now he's telling what the future is going to be. "He will perform activities which would be impossible even for great kings and sages. Very soon he will complete his task and come back home. You should know that he will also spread your reputation all over the world." The great sage Maitreya continued, "The king, Uttanapada, after being advised by Narada Muni, practically gave up all duties in relation to his kingdom, which was very vast and wide, opulent, like the goddess of fortune, and he simply began to think of his son Dhruva." Elsewhere, Dhruva Maharaj, having arrived at Madhuban, took his bath at the river Jamuna and observed fasting in the night with great care and attention. After that, as advised by the great sage Narada, he engaged himself in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, he, Dhruva, let's go back to his supermom, Suniti. He's a little boy, but his mother, she also has similar unhappy emotions or negative emotions about the whole situation. Her own plight, she's a queen, she's just neglected. Your father doesn't even care about me. That's why I'm over here, not in the palace. He doesn't even care. She's aware, and she knows that's not a happy feeling. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, my unhappiness was written on my forehead from the time of birth. She's accepting her misfortune without complaining about it. She didn't like it. She has feelings about it, but she's not going anywhere. Perhaps there's no details why. Perhaps because her son is the next king, and she wants to protect her son because she recognizes Uttanapada is not going to do that in a way that he needs to grow and mature and so forth. So she stays, even she's neglected, to take care, to do her motherly function. You know, today's world, she just like divorced the king or something, but walk away or poison him or something. But that's not her. So she imparts bhakti. How does bhakti begin? Well, two things. Bhakti is something that's already within, in a seed form, and it awakens when one contacts one who's carrying bhakti. Just like, here's a wooden table. And inside the wooden table, according to the Ayurvedic picture, there's fire stored inside the wood. Where'd that come from? Came from the light of the sun, and by photosynthesis, fire is stored inside the wood. And it's just sitting there. It's not hot, but there's fire stored inside the wood. How do you get the wood, this fire that's inside the wood, to come out? You bring some fire next to the wood, and the fire that's inside comes out. Similarly, bhakti is already in the heart of every living entity, a little spider and a giraffe or whatever, you know, wherever there's a soul that's part and parcel of the Supreme, there's already a connection with the Supreme. Bhakti is already there. It's just dormant. And something else is going on. Illusion is going on. But that's there. And how does bhakti come out? By contact with one who's carrying bhakti. That's how it comes out. But his mother was a carrier of bhakti. In her heart was an enormous amount of devotion, pure devotion to Lord Vishnu. We discussed this. Any one of you who are parents, and even I'm not a parent, I can't even imagine this, that she's going to say, okay, you want to go to the forest? See you later. Wild animals, no lunchbox. You know, like send your kid off to school with no lunch. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. And off to the forest. So, but she has such faith in Vishnu. There's two things. She knows the determination tendency of her son. He's not going to take no for an answer. He wants a kingdom, and Vishnu can get the kingdom for him. She has full faith. And she also has full faith in Vishnu's protecting his surrendered soul. Most of us don't have such faith, but she has that faith. And so off he goes to the forest. On the blessing, receiving the bhakti from his mother. And because of that bhakti from his mother, that's why Narada was sent by Vishnu to help him get to Vishnu. That's the function Narada provided. So he's protected by Vishnu. Narada knows, that's what he's saying. He's well protected. So then there's this whole discussion about Sharanagati, or taking shelter. Sharana means taking shelter. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam praja. Sharana means taking shelter, surrendering. So here's this question, and then answered. How can one live in the forest and not be taken care of by anyone, little boy? And the answer is, given by a great authority, Narada Muni, that such persons, they feel the sense of being well protected by the personality of Godhead. They're well protected by the personality of Godhead. It's one of there's, according to Padma Purana and other scriptures, there's 6 angas, or limbs, of surrender, Sharanagati, and one of them is to feel protected. Now, we don't do foolish things. Yeah, I'm protected. But in this case, he was well protected. His mother knew it, he knew it, Narada knew it, his father didn't know it. So he's informing his father. He's well protected. Sharanagati, or surrender, means acceptance or firm belief that whenever the surrendered soul, wherever the surrendered soul lives, he is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never alone and unprotected. Sa-natha, as opposed to anatha. He has a master, and he's protected by his master. I'm going to tell a little story. The Sanatha story. One of the things that I like to do for about 5 decades is visiting colleges, because I became connected to Krishna consciousness when Prabhupada came to the college that I was attending in undergraduate school. And since that time, I've always wanted to give back to my spiritual master a gift that I can never repay. So one of the things that I have done for a long time is visit colleges and try to do the same, be an instrument to help my spiritual master do what he wanted to do. So one of those places I was visiting one time was IIT Delhi. And I got up early in the morning, and I was going for a japa walk. And when I was going for a japa walk, it was like really quiet. Nobody's around except the street dogs. They're always around. And you know, because you've been, most of you, probably all of you, they gather together. And they're real territorial. It's the nature of the dog. Woof woof. Get away from my territory. So I was just walking, and when I went by their territory, they heard me chanting and walking, and so they lifted their head. One dog goes woof woof, and all the others go woof woof. Stay away, this is our territory. So I stayed away. And then, back and forth, and every time, doesn't matter how many times, it's always woof woof, and stay away from our territory. So then, after some time, one professor came. And the professor wasn't chanting japa, he was just going for a morning walk. And in one hand he had a stick, and in the other hand he had a leash for his little white poodle. Cute little guy. And as the professor was walking by, I watched. The head dog went woof woof. And the other dogs went woof woof. And they all jumped up. And so the professor with one arm leaned over, picked up his little white poodle, put him under his arm, and showed that with the other hand he showed the stick to the dogs. He stopped and showed the stick and moved it like this. And the dog looked at the stick, they looked at each other, they looked at the stick, they looked at each other, shrugged their shoulders, and went back and lied down. And a little poodle is licking the cheek of the professor, wagging his little tail like this. And that Bhagavatam verse that I gave in the morning, that same morning, was a purport where Prabhupada explained Sanatha and Anatta. So it's like made a deep impression. There are those that have a master, Nata, a lord. Dhruva had a lord, and he was taking full shelter of him, so he was fully protected, like the professor, his little white poodle, was wagging his tail, licking the dog didn't have to worry about the dogs, these street dogs that could have had him as a meal. No problem, he's a little guy, and there's 5 or 6 of those guys with sharp teeth and ready to gobble them. No problem, because he has a master. Similarly for us, if we don't have a sense of having a master, it's trouble. It's a dangerous place. Padam, yadi padam, natesham. It's a dangerous place, every step. And you have a master, and every step you're protected. So, the teaching of Bhagavad Gita is the same as the teaching of the Bhagavatam, and that is, when you take shelter of the personality of Godhead, guess what? He's a person. Just like mothers, when there are children that are fearful, they run to their mother, and they're picked up by their mother, and the mother's going to protect them. At the risk of her life, she'll protect them. It's just the nature of those who are capable of protecting. They're going to do it like that. And the child really doesn't need to worry, because they have a protector. So similarly, adults that have a protector. We don't do foolish things, but we should know, in the mood of service and shelter of the Supreme, He'll protect us. So that's this last. Anyone who engages in devotional service anywhere within this universe is never unprotected. So now we're back in Madhavan. Dhruva is off in the forest at Madhavan, and he starts his process as was instructed by Narada. After taking his bath, he engaged himself in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the way that he was instructed. Prabhupada's purport to this verse, our only, I made it really big like that, concern should be how to execute the order of the spiritual master. A spiritual master is expert in giving special instructions to each of his disciples, and if the disciple executes the order of the spiritual master, that is the way of his perfection. So now get ready for something very astonishing. It's going to, the narrator, Maitreya, is going to describe to Vidura what his austerities were, and they're kind of otherworldly. As Narada said, even kings and great sages can't do what Narada did, and even in such a yuga. For the first month, Dhruva ate only fruits and berries every 3rd day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way, he progressed in his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the 2nd month, Dhruva ate only every 6 days. And for his eatables, he took dry grass and leaves. Yummy. Every 6 days. Thus, he continued his worship. In the 3rd month, every 9 days he took some water. Thus he remained completely entranced and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was adored by selected verses, and who was doing the other things also, his mantra chanting and worship and remembering the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, as was told by Narada. In the 4th month, Dhruva Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise. And thus he inhaled air only every 12th day. In this way he became completely fixed in his position and worshiped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're going to go to the 5th month. He completely controlled his senses and their objects. And in this way, he fixed his mind without diversion to anything else upon the form of the Supreme Personality of God. That this is his Paramatma realization now developing. When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the entire material creation, and who is the master of all living entities, the 3 worlds began to tremble. He became very powerful. He wasn't trying to tremble anybody. It's just he became so powerful, that's what happened. As Dhruva Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, like you see, the pressure of his big toe pushed down half the earth, just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. When Dhruva Maharaj, I went ahead of myself. Okay, so the 3 words began to tremble. The word in the Sanskrit for text 78, in yellow letters at the bottom, he had captured the Lord in his heart. Now the Lord is already in our heart. You don't have to capture him, he's already there. And there's the heart of every living being, not just us, not just humans. Paramatma is within the heart of every living being. But he fixed his mind so intently in devotion that the Lord showed himself within his heart. That is, he captured the Lord. And the 3 worlds began to tremble. And this heaviness is mentioned here. Jiva Goswami asks this question. It's an interesting question. How is it possible for Dhruva Maharaj to capture Brahman within his heart? Because Brahman is all-pervasive, right? How do you do that? Jiva Goswami says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of Brahman. That's this jyoti of light surrounding in that image. For since he, that's the person, comprises everything material and spiritual, there cannot be anything greater than he. Many persons, especially the Mayavadi philosophers, consider Brahman the biggest, all expanding substance, but according to this verse and other Vedic literatures such as Bhagavad Gita, the resting place of Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the resting place of sunshine is the sun globe. But some of you know Bhagavad Gita well enough that in the 14th chapter that's discussing the modes of nature, the final verse of that chapter, Krishna says, he is the pratishta of Brahman. He is the basis and support of Brahman. Brahmano hi pratishta aham. Brahmano he means certainly. Brahmano hi pratishta. Pratishta is a nice word. Just like when you install a deity, that's the procedures. Deity worship, installing the deity. It's just pratishta means you install the deity by that method. So, just like you're seated on a carpet, on the floor, and so the carpet's on the floor is on some support beams probably, and the support beams are resting on the foundation, and the foundation is resting on the earth, and just keep going down and down and down and down and down. What's the partition of everything? The basis and support of where you're sitting is something underneath you. The basis and support of creation is the spiritual reality, and the spiritual reality, Brahman, is resting upon Krishna. That's the statement in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is the Pratishtha of Brahman. Just like the sunshine has its Pratishtha, that's the sun globe. Very easy to understand. So Srila Jiva Goswami goes on, therefore, since the transcendental form of the Lord is the seed of all greatness, he is the Supreme Brahman. Since the Supreme Brahman was situated in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj, he became heavier than the heaviest material object, and therefore everything trembled in all the three worlds and in the spiritual world. So here's a little image over on the left, that's the Brahman, the Jyoti, the light of transcendence, the all-pervasive Brahman. According to scripture, in addition, there's another aspect or feature, and that's the Paramatma, the localized, so there's all-pervasive, localized, Paramatma. And then there's the personal, or Bhagavan feature. So the Bhagavan feature was what was captured in, the Paramatma feature was captured in his heart, and so he became very heavy. By associating constantly with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Dhruva Maharaj naturally became equal to the greatest, or Brahman, by his association, and thus became the heaviest, and the entire universe trembled. There's this other verse. Notice the image is moving. Dhruva kept himself steadily standing on one leg. The pressure of his big toe pushed down half of the earth. Just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with this every step. I don't know where somebody got this image, it's a good image. But you can only imagine with the elephant steps, the boat rocks. So, like that, it's being compared. When Dhruva was at home, this is the next verse, 79. When Dhruva was at home, although he was a king's son, he was prevented from getting on the lap of his father. But when he became advanced in self-realization or devotional service by the pressure of his toe, he could push down the whole earth. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. In ordinary consciousness, a king's son maybe refused something, even by his father. But when the same person becomes fully Krishna conscious within his heart, he can push down the earth with the pressure of his toe. And there's some commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that says it was 1/2 of a pradesha. That's how much it was pushed down. So what's a half of a pradesha? He explains a pradesha is a measurement of distance, and pradesha is half a pradesha is half of 5 inches. So 2.5 inches. Half of the earth was crushed down. That's pretty heavy. And Prabhupada gives other translations of this word pradesha, 6 or 8 inches. In any case. When Dhruva Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu, the total consciousness, and thus took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They couldn't breathe. And not only they couldn't breathe, but the breathing in the universe was choked by this little boy. So they went before Lord Vishnu. What do we do? Explanation. This example of Dhruva Maharaj's closing the holes of his personal body and thereby closing the breathing holes of the total universe clearly indicates that a devotee, by his personal devotional service, can influence all the people of the whole world to become devotees of the Lord. And actually a nice image of Srila Prabhupada. Looks effulgent, doesn't he? Somehow they got that light coming through the window. It looks luminous. If, Prabhupada writes, if there's only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, he can change the total consciousness of the world into Krishna consciousness. So now, the next little section, there's just 2 sections remaining. The demigods go to take shelter of the personality of Godhead. This is Brahma in the middle, and there's other demigods you see in the image there. They go to the shore of the Milk Ocean. Where's the Milk Ocean? It's an island, Sweta Dweep, White Island, in the middle of the Milk Ocean, is the place where Shirodakshayi Vishnu resides in this universe, according to scripture. It's a spiritual planet within this material universe. And it's from that spiritual planet that Vishnu maintains everything, as well as expanded within the heart of every living being. So they went there. And the demigods said, "Oh, dear Lord, you are the refuge of all moving and non-moving living entities. We feel all living entities to be suffocating. Their breathing processes choked up. We have never experienced such a thing. Since you are the ultimate shelter of all surrendered souls, we have therefore approached you. Kindly save us from this danger." So there's the ocean of milk. There's Lord Vishnu on the island in the middle of that ocean of milk, the Sweta Dweep place. And commentary says, the Supreme Lord, who is the ultimate goal for the solution to all problems within this material world, in the spiritual world there's no problem, but the material world is always problematic. And so the demigods go to him. Vishvam Purna Sukhayate. It's a phrase from one of the scriptural writings about Lord Vishnu. Devotees are free from all problems because they are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For a devotee, everything in the world is very pleasing because he knows how to use everything in the transcendental service of the Lord. It doesn't require giving up, it requires utilizing in the service to the Lord. So Vishnu replies, "My dear demigods, do not be perturbed by this. It is due to the severe austerity and full determination of the son of King Uttanapada, who is now fully absorbed in thought of me. He has obstructed the universal breathing process. You can safely return to your respective homes. I shall stop this boy in his severe acts of austerities, and you'll be saved from the situation." So his reassurance is enough for the demigods. He has simply concentrated his mind upon me. This will not destroy anything. That's paraphrasing what he's saying. So there's Dhruva in his meditation. Vishnu is going to come. And now we're almost done. There's just a few verses from the beginning part of chapter 9. That closed chapter 8, finally, and we're beginning chapter 9. Dhruva returns home. When he gets perfection, he goes back to his father's kingdom. So this is a section where Lord Vishnu appears before him. He said, "I'm going to check Dhruva," and so he keeps his word. When the demigods were thus reassured by the personality of Godhead, they were freed from all fears. And, after offering their obeisances, they returned to their heavenly planets. Then, the Lord, who was non-different from the Sahasra Shirsha incarnation, got on the back of Garuda, who carried him to the Madhavan forest to see his servant Dhruva. Now, I put in big letters the Sahasra Shirsha incarnation. Some of you may know from Purusha Sukta prayers from Rig Veda. That's how it starts. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapad. Maybe some of you know that mantra. Very famous, celebrated section from Rig Veda. So, who is that Sahasra Shirsha? It's Vishnu. And Vishnu is an expansion of Krishna. We've been discussing this multiple times during this visit. He's the Vishnu feature that deals with material affairs. He oversees Prakriti. Maya Jakshena Prakriti. Suyate Sacharachara from Bhagavad Gita. Adhyakshi, he oversees Prakriti. That's Vishnu. That's his function. And he's known in Rig Veda as Sahasra Shirsha. And the text says by means of Garuda, so he can go anywhere he wants without Garuda, but he just gives Garuda some service. And with Garuda, they together went from Sritadweep to this earth planet to check out what Dhruva was up to. There's a nice painting, Lord Vishnu riding on the back of Garuda. Commentary says, according to Srila Sanatana Goswami in his Bhagavatamrita, the Sahasra Shirsha personality who appeared at that time was the incarnation known as Prishnigarbha. Now, the first evening we spoke the same thing. It was written by Rupa Goswami in his writings, Bhagavad Bhagavatamrita. Here's Sanatana Goswami saying the same thing. Now, some of you know the Janmashtami story very well. And in the Janmashtami story, Krishna Janmashtami, Krishna appears in the prison house of Kamsa as the 8th child of Devaki in this Vishnu form. Very unusual. Up for birth of a child. And first, Vasudeva offers his prayers, Devaki offers her prayers, and then Vishnu speaks. And Vishnu says, long, long ago in Satya Yuga, you worshipped me. You underwent severe austerities as Sutapa and Prishni, wanting to have a son like me. And I appear to you in this very same form, and said, not only in this lifetime, but in the next 3 lifetimes, I will appear as your son. So the first of those was the son of Sutapa and Prishni, known as Prishnigarbha. Prishnigarbha, son of Sutapa and Prishni. So that's Satya Yuga, and our acharyas say that same form of Sahasra Shirsha means Prishnigarbha, the same one that appeared before Sutapa and Prishni, is the same one that appeared before Dhruva. It's a detail, but that's what's in the commentary. And this Vishnu from Sritadweep is going to provide the place for Dhruva to go, because that's what he wanted him. A king that's better than his great-great-grandfather Brahma. That's Dhruvaloka. So he's going to come and deliver him to that Dhruvaloka. Listen. It is understood from Laghu Bhagavatamrita that the avatar who appeared in front of Dhruva was Prishnigarbha. He is called Sahasra Shirsha, which refers to Garbho Dakshayi Vishnu because they are non-different. both being Vishnu. What does that mean? So, it's a little technical, but don't worry if you don't understand it, because there are three Vishnus. We were discussing this in the morning Bhagavatam class. Mahavishnu, he generates the universes. And then he expands into each universe as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and then into every atom as Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Vishnu, 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 one entity, known by different names according to function only. But all the function is about overseeing Prakriti, the material creation. That's what Vishnu does. The form of the Lord, this is text 2. We're just going to do 5 texts and we're done. The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva Maharaj, in his mature yogic process, was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. He was seeing Paramatma within his heart, and poof, he just went. He was startled. Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. A little different, in the Lord in his heart is standing on a lotus, not with Garuda, and then he's not on a lotus and he's with Garuda, but the same form. Here's a detail for those that like the topics of the Bhagavatam and churning the topics of the Bhagavatam. This is a commentary by Jiva Goswami describing what just happened. And he's comparing the meditation of the gopis with the meditation of Dhruva. You ready? In their trance of separation, the devotees of Braja are aware of nothing but Krishna. Their ecstasy is so deep that, as a natural effect of remembering Krishna, they see him physically before them. He's not before them. They're feeling separation, but they see him before them because their affection is so intense. In contrast, other pure devotees, whose love for Krishna is not in the same level of perfection, have separate experiences of him internally and externally. Dhruva, for example, concentrated his mind on Lord Vishnu in deep meditation. But his internal vision of the Lord did not expand into a vision outside like that of the gopis. Only when Lord Vishnu came to Dhruva to offer him special mercy did the Lord disappear from Dhruva's heart to show himself externally. Pretty interesting, huh? It's in the Priti Sandarbha, one of our devotees translated, Bhanu Swami translated all of the Sandarbhas, and they're very wonderful literature. So it's the affection, the Priti of the Vrajvasis is superlative. It's not to say Dhruva is didn't quite get there. He's a pure devotee, but he has devotion of a certain kind, and the superlative devotion and love of the gopis is demonstrated this way. Do you recognize who that is in the painting? Bilvamangala Thakur? Bilvamangala Thakur was a great Vaishnava who lived in Vrindavan in Braja for a long, long time, and he had become blind, and he would sing devotional songs, Krishna Karnamrita songs, and Krishna would come and listen, and he knew that Krishna was there, although he couldn't see him with his eyes because he was blind. In the Brahma Samhita it is said, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena, a saintly person who has developed love of Godhead by devotional service always sees the Lord's transcendental form of Shyamasundara. This Shyamasundara form of the Lord within the heart of the devotee is not imaginary. commentary from this text too. When a devotee becomes mature in his prosecution of devotional service, he sees face to face the same Shyam Sundar. He comes to the devotee because of his devotion. He reveals himself because of the devotion of the devotee. It's his prerogative to do that. So, now another reflection is we just have to remain fixed in the devotional process given to us, just like Dhruva did, and the Supreme Lord comes and stays with us. That's what happened with Dhruva. And the same, that repeatedly in this section, Prabhupada writes, it's not just that's a nice for Dhruva, but it's never going to happen for us. It's meant to happen for us. We have to come to that stage of maturity, of bhakti. But when that maturity bhakti comes, the same for us. So text 3. When Dhruva Maharaj saw his Lord just in front of him, he was greatly agitated and offered him obeisances and respect. He fell flat before him like a rod and became absorbed in love of Godhead. Dhruva Maharaj in ecstasy looked upon the Lord as if, the phrase is used 3 times, as if he were drinking the Lord with his eyes, as if he were kissing the Lord with the lotus feet of the Lord with his mouth, and embracing the Lord with his arms. He is just in ecstatic devotion, and he doesn't know what to say, what to do. He's just overwhelmed. And the commentary, Prabhupada, all these features of Dhruva Maharaj's bodily expression indicate that upon seeing the Lord face to face, he developed the 8 kinds of transcendental ecstasy in his body. Ashta Sattvika transformations. So he's very fortunate. Next to the last verse. Although Dhruva Maharaj was a small boy, he wanted to offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in suitable language, but he was inexperienced and he could not adjust himself immediately. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, could understand Dhruva's awkward position. Out of his causeless mercy, he touched his conch shell to the forehead of Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. Very beautiful painting. We heard earlier where the head of Dhruva was touched by the hand of Narada, and he received great blessings just by that contact with anything, even a glance. And now here it's the touch of the conch shell. And we're going to hear what that does. The purport reads, the personality of Godhead being situated in everyone's heart specifically gives a devotee intelligence to describe him. It is therefore understood that when a devotee writes or speaks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his words are dictated by the Lord from within. Nice painting. Prabhupada's doing the Bhaktivedanta purports, and images of dictation from Krishna are appearing for him. The little Prabhupada story. Who can imagine how busy Prabhupada was organizing and developing this international organization with young people that didn't know anything about anything, and taking care of them and training them and writing and expanding and temples and deity worship and gurukul and farm communities, and gosh, it's enough to make it in your head spin just thinking about it. Yet, from time to time, he would sit for hours at a time, have somebody just read, and he wouldn't get fatigued. But, if we had to listen for hours, we probably would fall asleep. He heard very attentively, would make sounds like and then would sometimes say, Krishna has written these books. I was just the instrument. Something like Ganesh and Vyasadeva dictating, and he was writing everything down. So, he's an instrument, and anyone who assists can take on that same position of being an instrument. When Dhruva Maharaj felt hesitant, not knowing how to describe the Lord for want of sufficient experience, the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, and he was transcendentally inspired. This transcendental inspiration is called Brahma Maya, meaning energy. Because when one is thus inspired, the sound he produces exactly corresponds to the sound vibration of the Vedas. This is not the ordinary sound vibration of this material world. Therefore, the sound vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra, though presented in the ordinary alphabet, should not be taken as mundane or material. And we're done. There's just this reference to Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. Some of you who have heard Prabhupada's lectures, you recognize this phrase, Swamim Vikartosmi Varam Leyache. And it says, Oh my Lord, because I was seeking an opulent material position, I was performing severe type of penance and austerity. Now, I have gotten you, who are very difficult for the demigods, saintly persons, and kings to attain. I was searching for a piece of glass, but instead I found a most valuable jewel. Therefore, I am satisfied, so satisfied, that I do not wish to ask any benediction from you. So he knew what was coming, just like Prahlad Maharaj knew. Lord Sringadev wanted to give him benediction, and the answer is no, thank you. Jiva Goswami comments, these are the words of Dhruva. They do not spring from full realization of the sweet aspect of the Lord. These words arose from the touch of the Lord's conch. However, it is evident that gradually he obtained that realization. Here's the final verse. At that time, Dhruva Maharaj became perfectly aware of the Vedic conclusion and understood the absolute truth and his relationship with all living entities in accordance with the line of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose fame is widespread. Dhruva, who in the future would receive a planet which would never be annihilated, even during the time of dissolution, offered his deliberate and conclusive prayers, which is what we're going to be hearing this evening. There's 12 prayers, and we're going to cover 5 of them because it takes a while, because they're really powerful prayers. So that's the background for this evening's prayer section. Just 2-3 more slides. Dhruva, commentary. Dhruva never went to any school or academic teacher to learn the Vedic conclusion, but because of his devotional service to the Lord, as soon as the Lord appeared and touched his forehead with his conch shell, automatically the entire Vedic conclusion was revealed to him. Pretty extraordinary. Don't try it. We normally have to have a teacher. And this is the last slide. The Vedas, we saw this before in our earlier sections. So, Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir, Yatha Devi Tathagaro, Tasyaite Katita Hyartha, Prakashante Mahatmanaha. So the indication is only to one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, as well as in the spiritual master, is the Vedic conclusion revealed. So he didn't go to school, he had implicit faith in Narada's words, as well as his mother's words. Because she was a Vartma Pradarshaka Guru, as Narada was his Shiksha and Diksha Guru. He had full faith in them, and full faith in the personality of Godhead, and so the knowledge was revealed to him. And we're going to hear something further as we go along. This is this evening's class, the power of prayer. Okay. You've been very patient. I was a little concerned because I knew this section is a little long, but the evening session is shorter. But this was a little bit long, and you've been like amazingly patient. The kids are having a good time too. So any comments or questions that you'd like to discuss? Yeah.
Is it true that Indra, Agni tried to disrupt Dhruva's meditative process?
There is no indication like that, but you'll hear Dhruva is questioning. Maybe they tried. It comes after his prayers. There's 12 prayers. But afterwards Vishnu departs. Vishnu speaks and Vishnu departs, and he's thinking, maybe it was because of the demigods.
Who's thinking that?
Dhruva.
Oh.
Why things turned out the way things turned out, because they didn't want to have the universe choked up, and so they were trying to disturb my meditation and austerity. You'll see as we go along. I'm thinking what I'll do is, it's not a promise, but maybe what I'll do is, next time I come to Phoenix, I'll do part 2. Because there's 13 sessions, and I've only covered, I think this is 5, and tonight is 6. So next time we'll do the rest. How's that? Okay? Anyone else? Comments, questions?
I just needed clarification. I got a little bit confused when the Brahman was entering Dhruva's heart. So I was thinking that would be interpreted as Paramatma in the heart. But it was explained as the Brahman going inside the...
Well, the verse doesn't say Paramatma, the verse says Brahman. So Jiva Goswami is saying, how can Brahman, which is all pervasive, be in your heart? That was his question. So then his answer is, Brahman is supported by Parabrahman. The Pratishta of Brahman is Parabrahman, like the sun and sunshine. So because within Dhruva's heart, he had captured the personality of Godhead, Paramatma was within his heart, which includes Brahman within his heart. So it's not a contradiction. That's all he's saying. It's just, some people ask those kinds of questions, so he's answering in his commentary. It's in Paramatma Sandarbha, that reference. Okay? We're done. Yeah?